Hey everyone, welcome back to Critical Coverage Channel. Today we're diving into a shocking revelation that should concern every American: how the Biden administration is stripping away 2 decades of safety standards, all to benefit Big Pharma. Senator Josh Hawley is calling them out, and trust me, you don't want to miss this breakdown. If you care about women's health, state rights, and holding our leaders accountable, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you never miss an update.
2000, President Clinton's FDA approved a chemical abortion regimen with the drugs mifepristone and also misoprostol. Now, the FDA concluded that mifepristone could not be safely used. I'm quoting the FDA there. Safely used, could not be, without special measures. It's the FDA's language. And in particular, the FDA mandated that prescribers needed to be licensed physicians who were able to diagnose and treat ectopic pregnancies to accurately determine the gestational age of the baby. And the FDA further required that these drugs be administered and dispensed in person, that there be a day 1 in-person administration of the drug, a day 3 in-person administration of the second wave of the drug, a day 14 check-in for complications. And the FDA further emphasized that given the potential risks of these drugs, physicians needed to be able to provide ongoing care. The FDA also said, and I'm quoting now, the percentage of women who considered any particular adverse event as severe ranged from 2 to 35%, end quote. And the FDA included what's called a black box warning, which you're very familiar with, which remains on the drug. Now, those restrictions were largely in place until just a couple of years ago, when the Biden administration, after the United States Supreme Court took up the Dobbs decision, granted cert on it, at that point, the Biden administration decided to eliminate 20 years of in-person dispensing requirements for this drug. They didn't cite any studies that they said were adequate. In fact, the FDA acknowledged that the studies that they looked at did not take into account the new protocols that they were issuing. They just eliminated 2 decades of in-person dispensing requirements.
Let's start with some history. Back in 2000, during the Clinton administration, the FDA approved a chemical abortion regimen that included mifepristone and misoprostol. But here's the catch. The FDA itself determined that these drugs could not be safely used without special measures. We're talking about strict requirements like in-person dispensing, physician oversight, and multiple check-ins to prevent serious complications. For 2 decades, these safety measures were upheld, even under different administrations. Why? Because they were based on solid medical data and real concerns about risks to women's health. So what changed? Well, buckle up, because this is where politics trumps science. Fast forward to today. The Biden administration made a massive move that should alarm everyone. They eliminated long-standing safety standards without citing new, credible research. Now, chemical abortion drugs can be mailed directly to women. No doctor visits required. This happened just as the Supreme Court took up the Dobbs case. Coincidence, or a calculated move to override state laws? You decide.
That there's no requirement that it be ingested in the presence of a physician. There's no in-person dispensing requirement whatsoever. This is what the Biden administration, 2 decades of in-person dispensing requirements, the Biden administration eliminated those.
Now let's talk about how Senator Josh Hawley is exposing this dangerous shift. In a recent hearing, he put Biden's FDA nominee in the hot seat, demanding answers. Hawley laid out the facts. The FDA's own data showed that adverse events from these drugs range from 2% to a staggering 35%. We're talking about severe complications, life-threatening bleeding, and incomplete abortions that require surgery. Yet instead of strengthening safety measures, the Biden administration weakened them. And here's the kicker: over 60% of abortions in the U.S. are now carried out using these drugs. That means thousands of women are taking powerful drugs alone, without medical supervision, in situations that could turn deadly.
Here's the deal. The FDA's rules were pretty consistent and pretty stable for 20-plus years until suddenly the Dobbs decision appeared on the horizon. And when that happened, all of a sudden, we got massive changes in the dispensing requirements of this drug. And I'll just point out that over 60% of abortions in the United States are now carried out with chemical drugs, with these drugs. They're not done in clinics, they're not done in hospitals. They're done with these drugs without any kind of physician supervision, without any physicians there if there's a serious adverse event.
Let's talk about the bigger picture. If these reckless FDA policies stand, state laws won't matter anymore. The federal government is bypassing state laws by mailing these drugs nationwide. So much for democracy, right? The Biden administration thinks bureaucrats in Washington know better than the American people. And let's not forget the safety risks. Shouldn't women be protected from dangerous, unsupervised medical procedures? This isn't just about politics, it's about women's health and state rights.
And I'll also just point out that if the Biden rules are allowed to stand, it doesn't matter what voters in the states, it doesn't matter what, this is a serious and very difficult moral issue, the case of life and abortion. And it won't matter what voters in the states say, because the Biden rules say now that bureaucrats can mail in abortion drugs to every single state, no in-person dispensing required. It doesn't matter what voters in the state have decided on the issue. It doesn't matter whatsoever. Now, if that's allowed to stand, we may as well just go back to having the Supreme Court make all the decisions, because right now Washington bureaucrats are making all the decisions. Doctors are not involved. They're not in-person dispensing. State voters are not involved. And I just want to register this is extremely concerning to me. It ought to be concerning to everyone who's concerned about women's safety, and also about what I thought was the position of this administration, which is that it ought to be voters in the states and the relevant to localities that are deciding this decision. So I know you're familiar with this, Doctor.
Thank you.
I appreciate your commitment to the data. I hope that you'll look at the full range of data, and I hope we can count on you to protect women's health and the health of the unborn.
Thank you, Senator.
That's where you come in. We need to keep the pressure on. Share this video, leave a comment below, and let me know what you think. Should the FDA reinstate safety standards? Should states have the right to regulate abortion drugs? Your voice matters. And before you go, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you stay informed. We're just getting started, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.